favorite people and some of my newest friends. I am Madeline Landrew. I'm the Dean of the Law School here, for those of you I've not had the pleasure of meeting. Bill Quigley is Professor Quigley is going to moderate tonight's panel. So I'm going to introduce Professor Quigley and Sister Helen. Sister Helen's going to introduce our other guests who are here to talk about now the graphic novel of Dead Man Walking, which is not really what tonight's about. Tonight's about the story that's in it, the lives that are in it, the lives that are depicted in it, and our reflections on what it means to be for life, for dignity, and for all of the things that this book stands up for. So Professor Quigley retired recently on my watch. I feel responsible for that. It's like, Quigley, what did I do to make you leave? But served for more than 30 years as the director of our law clinic and Gillis Long Poverty Law Center, where he lifted this community up into the work of social justice. His letter to a law student on social justice is one to read. He has been my mentor and my guide on many, many things, and I'm very grateful for his friendship. And it is of his friendship with Sister Helen that forged this experience. And we know that in the world of Jesuit education, it's not enough to just understand the law, understand the rules, understand what it means to be a Jesuit-trained social justice lawyers. But what the Jesuits really speak to us about is experiencing this. Sister Helen Prejean was raised in Baton Rouge, right up the river. She lived in the comfort of a convent when she decided to enter in that space, and then really realized that was she really doing the work that God called her to do. Now, the death penalty and men and women on death row were not in her sights at the time. What was in her sights is, I'm living in comfort and I'm preaching about caring for the poor, and I'm talking about caring for the poor, but am I really doing it? So she moved into a housing development here and actually lived among and with the people. And it was through that experience that she began this pen-pal relationship with Pat Sonia, who was on death row. And I've heard her speak many times, and so she'll say it again, but she didn't really understand, and do any of us understand, when the gospel says, I was in prison and you visited me, did that really, really mean visited you? Like, is that really what it meant? Because I didn't really, I know I read it, I know that's what it said, but did it mean maybe something else? And this began for her a journey that has transformed the way people in the United States think about death and life and the dignity of men and women, no matter what their conduct. And so, Sister Helen, first off, Professor Quigley, thank you for agreeing to moderate this panel. Sister Helen, thank you for being here with us and for the work that you do. And I want you to give them a round of applause, and then Sister Helen is going to introduce our fellow panel members have brought the graphic novel of Dead Man Walking to life. And so, Sister Helen, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to yield the stage to our moderator and to Sister Helen. Thank you all so very much. It's our honor to have all of you.
Look, it's good to be here. Good to be here. So, these two women it took 6 years to do this book. So Rose Vines, we work closely together in Ministry Against the Death Penalty, is the writer. So she took the text of Dead Man Walking and selected out the stories, fed them to Catherine Anyango Grunwald, who's fresh over from Sweden, to come to be with us, and she is the illustrator that brought the ideas to life. The graphic is like nothing else, and it brings things to life in a way. So we are especially interested in having it for the next generation. And it's going to be at the reception. We have copies of the book, first come, first serve. I think we have 100 or so.
First 100.
So don't push and shove. Jesuit training. Our esteemed moderator.
So welcome again to Loyola and to this event. So this is the book that the first 100 of you will be able to get for free. As you can see, it's it's several hundred pages. Beautiful illustrations, tells the story of Dead Man Walking and then some. And so what tonight I think we're going to do is talk about how this book came into being, the role that telling a story is different when you're typing something out versus when you're drawing pictures and trying to accommodate and create and be artful in a different way than just with prose. And I think has really supercharged the story. I really didn't have a vision in my own mind of what it would look like. So when I actually had the chance to sit down and read it, it was really, really exciting. And I know it'll be exciting for you as well, and will be exciting for people all over the country and all over the world, as has the book, Dead Man Walking, which has sold something like 800,000 copies of that book have been distributed. Then we had the movie, which you may remember, some of you may remember, and that was very powerful, seen by uncountable numbers of people. And then we had the opera of Dead Man Walking, which is right now the most performed American opera in the United States. And so what I want to do, because I know I recognize a lot of you here as friends and longtime advocates for this kind of stuff, but there's also some people I don't know. I'd like to ask Sister Helen to just set the stage for us of what is the idea of Dead Man Walking for 5 or 7 minutes, if that's possible, what the book was, how you came into it, and then we'll talk about with Rose and Catherine about how it actually was transformed into the art that we have here. Is that okay?
Yep.
Sound okay?
Be short at 5 minutes, because we want to hear from these two women. We just came from the Octavia bookstore, and it's such a lively dynamic of how it actually came into being. The seed of it was planted when I was in the studio here doing the audio book of Dead Man Walking and my spiritual autobiography, River of Fire. And the woman who was representing Random House there in the studio said, "Have you ever had a graphic book of Dead Man Walking?" I said, "No." She said, "I think Random House would be interested in that." Got on the phone, called Random House. I said, "Yes, we'd like to have a graphic." I mean, the only thing we don't have, y'all, because we got the movie, we got the opera, we got the stage play. We don't have the ballet Dead Man Kicking. But we're working on it. So that's how so I call Rose Vines, who is our right brain, right heart for social media, for everything. I said, "Rose, what do you think?" She said, "Yeah." And so, Rose, you take it from there.
Yeah, well, I immediately assumed I was going to write it. And I knew Helen wouldn't have the time and has a different way of looking at things. And we both went to Barnes & Noble and sat down with the manga and all the graphic books and researched. And, I was pretty clueless, and so I also researched how to write scripts. And we knew we would need an illustrator, but it's a sort of hard...
As a moderator, can I back up just 1 second? Can you tell everybody what happened? What is your 5 seconds, 2 minutes about who you are, how you ended up in this work?
Yeah, what are you doing here?
Cool. I'll go back to my childhood. At the age of 11, I was involved in my first protest action, which was writing a letter to the Premier of the state of Victoria, I'm Australian, and to protest the hanging of Ronald Ryan. It was 1967. He was the last man that Australia executed. And that was sort of the start of my activist journey, and I've gone in all sorts of directions from that. And when I eventually moved to the US, and ended up in New Orleans, I knew that Sister Helen lived here, and I looked at racism and religion and the death penalty and incarceration, and they all tied together, and I thought that's what I want to work on. And so I volunteered first with Helen, and I helped her edit The Death of Innocence. She was writing The Death of Innocence, and so I dove in and helped her edit that, and we've been working together ever since. So, is that good?
That's good.
Okay. Anyway, you know, we knew we needed an illustrator. We knew we needed an illustrator. and, and, you know, it wasn't like we could offer anyone money. It was like, you know, we need an illustrator. This is going to be a big project. You know, how do we go about that? And so I started just looking at the illustrators and really good people around. And I came across Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, illustrated by Catherine. And I was blown away and thought it might be a little too phantasmagorical a style. But then, you know, some of you will have been in Angola or other institutions or visited, and you know how surreal it can be, the experience. And so, in fact, it seemed like having someone who is good at surreal and realistic illustration would be perfect. I tracked her down. I found her website that wasn't working, and so I found her on Twitter, and I said, "Your website's not working," and the reason why I was looking for you was that this is the project, and she said, you know, we didn't know if that would work, but she said, please keep me in the loop and if I can help. And so we organised a Zoom, and if any of you know Helen, you won't be surprised that on that Zoom, it starts with Helen saying to Catherine, "Thank you for agreeing to do this." And 6 years later, we finished it. So that was how it started off, and then handed it over to Catherine.
Terrific. Catherine, can you start by just give us a little bit of your background before you got involved in this?
Sure. I grew up in Kenya. I'm half Kenyan, half Swedish. I went even further back than you. And I remember seeing Dead Man Walking on TV when I was little. And I work I'm an art teacher, but I also have my own practice. And I work a lot with drawing and animation and trying to find ways to talk about violence, or how the way that violence affects the marginalized or the underrepresented because of the way that social systems work. So my drawings are sort of explorations of how systems can go wrong. And so when we started talking about this book, it was such a natural subject area for me, because it's really all about how a system that is on paper supposed to protect us is something which is very fragile. So that was my entry point into the book.
I could tell in the very first conversation that you have a heart for human rights and justice, and so came right through, and so we began. So, Rose, say what you did.
In Helen's book, she talks about two men whom she accompanied to their executions. First one is Patrick Sonnier, and the second one is Robert Lee Willie. And so we're the latest of many adaptations of Helen's book, and all the others have joined those two characters together, two people, and made them one character. And which made sense, especially in film and opera, to do that, to make the story simpler and more easily conveyed. But I told Helen from the start I didn't want to do that I wanted to do the full story. And this is the full Dead Man Walking. And that's because Patrick Sonnier is actually quite likable. He was very remorseful, and it's very easy to feel compassion for him. Whereas Robert Lee Willie was sort of a bit of a horror show, and very, very hard to like. And and I wanted that, and we wanted that. You know, always Dead Man Walking has been a book that doesn't tell you the death penalty's terrible, and by the time you've finished reading it, this book, you will decide it's terrible. it's always been a book that said, these are horrible crimes, and how do we deal with them? And is the death penalty the way to deal with them? It's a questioning book. And so I wanted that to come through. And I think so we start with Patrick Sonnier, and you think, okay, yeah, it sounds horrible to kill him, but you end with Robert Lee Willie, and you think, oh, that's a hard decision. We want it to be a hard decision. So I structured the book that way, and I also wanted it, we all wanted this book. Helen's book really sparked a whole debate across the country when it came out. When Helen's book came out, public support for the death penalty was 80%. In Louisiana, it was over 90%. And now it's just hovering around 50%, depending on how you ask the question, and diving down. And Helen's book and the film had a huge part in that, in bringing that to the public's attention. But a lot of people now have never read the book, never seen the movie, don't know there's an opera, and we wanted to get the book out there to a whole new generation of readers in a format that is increasingly popular. And so one of the things I wanted to do in the book was to bring the past. It was written in 1993 or published in 1993 from events that happened in the early 80s. And we needed to connect it with the present. And so we added in a couple of little characters. They're animals, an owl called the Ouracle and an ant called the Pissant. And the Ouracle provides future history and links, we'll be talking about cases, Supreme Court cases then and what they are now, like looking at the Eighth Amendment and what's happened to it in the 21st century. And what it was looking like when Helen wrote the book. So the Oracle helps bring us through to now, and the Pissant is just a pissant. I mean, the Pissant wanders around the edges of the panels and makes sardonic comments, but it was you need a little bit of levity in a book like this. So,
Yeah.
So, Catherine, tell us about how you, as the artist, were able to negotiate this story from prose to pictures, and to tell the story in all the complexities that it has. And the negotiations that you had between the three of you about what to tell and how to do it.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, everyone, for being here. I forgot to say it earlier. It's always really special. So it's an interesting question when you talk about prose and pictures, because I think that there's an assumption that illustration is something that replicates a text or does the same thing as a text. So you draw a picture of what is happening. But I think good illustration or illustration that can engage people is something which works with the text and also works with the reader, the brain of the reader in an invisible way. So I like to call it invisible storytelling, how you can use visual tools like color or where something is on the page or the texture of a line. Those things have like a sensual effect on the body, which is a different effect than text. So I was looking for ways to bring out the concepts in the book, the horror, the uncomfortableness, the tragedy, the victims, to express those in a way that sort of affected the reader on a different kind of level than the text, so that it would, reach out to your inner core. And also, with a novel like this, you have to be careful to be clear about the story. So you have to sometimes sort of move the story along with, this is what's happening. Now she's getting a bowl of soup. So that doesn't have to be super intellectualized in the drawings. But I tried to make, wherever I could, images that had a lot of different layers of how they could be read. And I can talk you through one if you like.
Please.
Yeah, let's do
I
it.
can do the same one I did at Octavia.
Oh.
Why do we put it at the end?
Did we put it at the end? Which one is it?
I thought I'd do this one.
Oh, yes.
And there's no text on this one, but there is in the book, but there isn't any text on this one. So in this spread, Sister Helen is talking about her childhood, growing up in Jim Crow era, and how I think the text talks about she was 12 years old the first time she witnessed violence against a black person, and that this woman had been kicked out of a bus. So to start with, in the graphic novel you have panels, and the panels are what holds each part of the story, and so the reader has an expectation of the panel as something which is a border, and so I decided to have the woman being kicked out of the bus and actually kicked out of the panel, so it disrupts that convention. So even if you're not sort of reading it thinking, oh, she's being kicked out of the panel, so it means this, it affects your in a subliminal way. So then I had her being kicked out, not just of the bus, but into this terrible landscape of lynching. And you can do that with drawing because you don't have to, everything doesn't have to be real. So she's is trying to illustrate the fragility of the boundary between safety and non-safety. And so then there's this landscape with the lynching tree, and it's a double-page spread, and the tree reaches across into the second page, where Sister Helen is swinging from the same tree. As again, it wouldn't happen in real life, but you can bring these things together. And that was and she's talking to her mother, and her mother is talking about how they like to be with their kind, and we like to be with ours. And I wanted by them this tree going across the two panels and her swinging from the same tree that a violent act is happening on. I wanted to express this idea that this innocence in Helen and this ignorance or the willful ignorance of people at the time was directly complicit in the violence that was happening at the time. So that's kind of how I was thinking about using visual language to do something a little bit more complicated than just saying this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened.
That's a beautiful example, because there's no words, right? There's
No, there are words on this spread, it's just we didn't have the right version.
Okay. But
it's minimal words.
yeah,
It is
so
minimal.
as
But
you
you need
said,
them.
so this is a pitch to our unconscious and to
Yeah.
our understanding that's not necessarily verbal, but is for the feelings that we have, the expectations, the things, the remembrances that this will awaken us.
Right, and I had expressed in the book, it's what culture does. Because Mom and Daddy were always kind, but the only way I knew African-American people growing up was as our servants. Ellen worked in the house with Mama, and Jesse worked in the yard. Daddy and Mama helped him buy a house and get a good job for Jesse, but never questioned the Jim Crow laws. And, you know, Mama saying, well, it's good for the races to be separate. And it was not that people were mean-spirited. And often racism is not people being, but just being ignorant. And that's what culture does. It gives you eyes and ears. Here's how we understand. So that awakening to the Jim Crow was when I moved into the St. Thomas housing projects and realized I don't even know any poor people. I didn't have any African-American people as my peers or my friends or my neighbors. So I moved in to the neighborhood, and that's another part of the story, which maybe you want to talk about how you did that, Catherine.
I don't know if we've got a picture of that. You mean when...
Well,
don't
just
think we
anything
have.
you want to show. It's a whole book. You can read it for yourself. Well, just that connection of writing the letter to Pat came out of that experience of being at Hope House.
Yeah, I thought, oh, Jesus. I don't think I have the spread, but what I took from that section of the story was you talk about that you've walked into this eerie landscape, and that was for me a foreshadowing of the landscape that you were going to step into in the prison, because you also talk later in the book about how you were desperate at one point to step out of that landscape and back into Hope House and back into the normalcy of everyday life. And the fact of writing this letter, it's like a portal that happened to you. And again, I don't have that I can maybe just find it here. It's quite easy to. This is tedious for you. Sorry. This is a spread where Helen has sort of been through some sort of spiritual accounting. Her decision to write to Pat and to go visit him, and she says, if you tell me what needs to be done, I'll come. So she's sort of gone through the thought process, and what really stuck out to me was that this is the shape of the I don't know if you know the penitentiary, but it has a very distinctive shape, and it sort of corresponds very well with this closed envelope. So I thought that this idea of her writing the letter and then the envelope being opened was somehow so connected to the shape of the penitentiary. So it was a nice way to talk about that landscape that you found yourself in. And the director's notes.
It's really interesting. You know, I've read the book hundreds of times, and I still find new things that Catherine has put in there. And I think it's one of the treats of a graphic book is that you can read it in so many ways and at so many speeds too, because you can read it for the pictures, even better than Playboy, you know, and you can read it for the words, or you can read a few words and then think, oh, okay, that belongs to that. And there are just so many layers in there, and Catherine is very sneaky with putting things in, and you think, oh, she used that 4 chapters ago, you know, and so it's really a very rich reading experience. You know, you can probably whip through it in an hour, but you can probably spend 50 or 60 hours really reading it.
I'd like to just point out for people this is the owl that makes various appearances in the book, and I hope we have one with the ant.
There's an ant there as well.
There is an ant.
Where's this ant?
Trying to eat your sandwich.
In the 4th panel.
Oh, I see the ant.
Yeah.
Bring me the body. So this is an explanation of habeas corpus, and so we have both the owl explaining some of the background, and it's superimposed over some of the stories of the victims. And I want to come back to that because the characterization of the victims is very important. As those of you who read the book know that was one of the big things that Helen first came as a person of tremendous compassion and understanding of people on death row and people who were expected to be executed and were executed, and then was shocked and challenged by families of the victims saying, well, you're so compassionate for this person, what about us? He's being executed, but our children have already been executed, and how come you don't reach out to us? And so this thing of where trying to be compassionate to one side and also being challenged to be compassionate to all of the people involved. And as a lawyer, and there's plenty of lawyers in this room, we pick sides, or we are assigned sides. So you're either a prosecutor who's trying to put somebody away, or you're a defense lawyer who's trying to humanize and try and make sure they don't get executed or something like that. And when it's at the pardon board or it's in court, people actually go to different sides of the room. It's just not the contact and the relationship. And it's one of the geniuses of what Sister Helen did. She had the courage, as you pointed out, to move into public housing development, and had the courage to take a chance to send a letter to somebody on death row, and then had the courage to go ahead and go meet him and establish a relationship with him, and had the courage to actually be involved in the case and witness all the way up to the execution. And then, despite all that, she ended up with the courage to be challenged by the victims who said, "What about us? Aren't we people too?" And that just breaks a lot of molds, breaks out of a lot of expectations of. And can you maybe talk a little bit about that, how you were able to interpret that in the book?
Maybe it's actually, Rose could talk a bit about it as well, because we had a lot of discussions and we were very interested in having a focus on the victims' families and making sure that that was a big part of the book. We talked about, I think, the idea of mothers.
Yes.
Maybe you wanted to say something about that?
Yeah, and not just the victims' families in the sense of those who are the families who've had a crime committed against them, but the victims' families also including the families of the person being executed.
It's true.
So family is a really strong through line in it, as is race in it. And I've just forgotten what you asked me about.
Well, how we emphasize that.
Yeah, the mothers. Yeah, there's a wonderful page. I don't think we have it in this,
The
do
blue
we?
one?
The blue one, yeah.
Oh, here's the fathers.
That's the
Sorry,
fathers.
this is so irritating when I'm scrolling like this. I apologize.
I keep on seeing pages I want to go back to.
I'm sure it's the next one.
There it is. There we are. So this is, it says Helen with her mum watching the TV. I can't see it because I've got
This
the
is Helen, that's her mother.
wrong glasses on.
I think they're watching Helen on TV.
Right, being discussed,
Oh, yeah.
being,
Oh, God,
being
the
the
whole
friend of a
family got-
murderer,
Yeah.
the friend of a murderer, and then it goes through, and there's her mum, Gusta May, being, on the phone with someone yelling at her, "Are you the mother of that murdering, loving nun?" And then each of the other mothers involved, the mothers of the victims, the mother of Pat Saunier having her dead cat thrown at her door. Yeah. And
this was the mother of not Willie Francis. Yes, Willie Francis.
that's right.
Who I think I like to enlarge that part of the book because I thought it was important to talk a little bit about how important race is in the application of the death penalty. And so, what did I say his name was? Jesus, my brain.
Willie Francis.
Willie Francis was a young man.
Yeah, very young.
Sent to the chair, and he was sent there twice.
Twice.
He was
You
sent
see-
there twice. The first time it didn't work. But I read a long interview with his mother in a newspaper, and so I wanted to bring her in as well into this circle, just to sort of honor those stories, which aren't a huge part of the book, but are no less important.
He was the young black man. They put him in the electric chair, pulled the switch,
I think I have pictures.
and he didn't die. He goes, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." So they got him out. Then it went to the Supreme Court. Was it double jeopardy to kill him again?
Oh.
And we'll leave it to you in the discussion. Guess what the Supreme Court decided, whether or not it was double jeopardy or not.
Here. This is the
Yeah.
story of
Yeah, this is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to mention while that's up is you'll notice a Western Union telegram, and there's some photos from newspapers. We used as many original sources as possible throughout the whole book because it's very important. You pick up a graphic book and you think it's comics or whatever. We wanted to make sure people know this is non-fiction. This is what happened. And so throughout the whole book, we've used as many original sources. We used LSU Library, and we used the Prejean papers, which are held at DePaul University Archives in Chicago. And they have 80 feet of Helen's papers in their archives, massive archives, really wonderful. So all throughout the book, we've got things like original designs of electric chairs, letters saying here are the supplies that you need to electrocute someone and how much they cost. So we use that stuff to make sure people know this is not a fantasy, this is what.
And maybe, Catherine,
happened.
could you just say a little bit about what it takes to develop a double-sided page like that?
Oh, let me think. This is two spreads that tells the story, and I wanted it to be something which wasn't panel after panel. I wanted it to be something a bit more fragmented because I found the story so awful. So I wanted it to be sort of a collection of narration, but also these little fragments from the newspapers that sort of describe the story again. And then I also sort of drew, this is a picture of his family, so I redrew that. And then sort of little snapshots of historical kind of material to, like almost a scrapbook. I wanted it to feel as if somebody had an interest in the case and really tried to collect and keep something together out of it, because all of this information doesn't exist in the same place in the records. But I just found it such a story that I wanted to like make a little scrapbook for myself to collect and honor.
So is there any way to tell how much time you invested in just like these 2 pages?
Oh, this would probably have been quite a long time because of the drawing is a little bit more detailed than in the others. But I guess this would have taken maybe about, if I was working with real focus, maybe 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a daughter
Yeah.
and teaches at the art school, so
I
you
teach as
had your
well.
hands full.
Yeah. So it was a long process.
I want to leave the last 10 minutes, 10 till 7, for people's either short reactions or
On
a
something else.
question. But I would, before we do that, I'm going to want you to pull up the bobblehead picture, but
Yes.
would you do that?
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us how you decided to do this and what this represents here.
So this page, this is also about 3 or 4 spreads.
5.
5 spreads. And it was a really, really dense legal.
Yeah.
It was case after case, and it was explaining sort of the process of and the history of the death penalty, and it was very dense. And I wanted to, I think Rosie talked something about the Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah.
I wanted to give the reader some sort of space to be able to take in all this information and some sort of way to understand. So basically it's 5 pages, and it's a long shelf, and on the shelf are things that relate to the different judgments. For example, you see the pills there, that's when we're talking about medical execution. We have the man with the bat, that's relating to the case of
Joseph
Joseph
Wood.
Joseph Wood,
and
yep.
that was a baseball bat was used in that. And the bobbleheads, they are Supreme Justices, and so I gave them. So they are talking about the cases, and I used bobbleheads to represent them on the shelf. So it was quite fun to try and think of different like icons or symbols that could help us follow this very complicated legal argument. And those are real bobbleheads.
I saw that in
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saw that in the book.
In the
Explained it at the
acknowledgement,
end,
yeah. I wrote to the people who make them and asked, can I use them? And they said, yes, that sounds really, really
So
fun.
I think that's good for the lawyers and law students in the class and those who've been before courts, just to think of the Supreme Court as bobbleheads. It will help
Yeah.
us figure out how best to approach them.
And because everything that's said by any of the justices is direct quote from
Right.
the cases. So it's a sort of a nice juxtaposition
And I would note too that we have the owl explaining some of this as well, and then Pissant saying, what? What's he saying? In terms of, you know, what the court's trying to say, so,
Yeah.
which is an experience a lot of us have had already. Any things that you'd like to say that I mean, I know there's a million things that I didn't cover yet, but
I'm happy to hear questions if
Yeah,
people have
I feel like I
questions.
could just
Okay, so
jump in.
questions, especially in law school, is tough because people ask 3-paragraph long questions that are really statements of their own personal knowledge, and et cetera. So either give us a real quick feeling about this or a real question. Start with you.
Catherine, beautiful work.
Thank you so much.
I love the juxtaposition of light and dark. I love the layering effect. I love the way it looks like a scrapbook. It brings the reader in very intimately to make it feel like it's a personal story to the reader. How did you decide on the medium that you used? Was it drawn with pencil and paper? Was it done digitally? And did that have any impact on how you told the story?
So could you hear that in the back? Okay,
What
yes. go ahead.
medium she is.
Yeah, what medium, and how did you just decide how you were going to do it?
Did I turn that off now? So my general work is very concerned with material, and I'm really interested in pencil and paper because pencil and paper is something that everyone has used. So it's very democratic, but it also has a capacity for mystery, and that's how I like to use it. Having said that, I did do this digitally because having worked with pencil and paper on Heart of Darkness, the amount of time it takes to scan something was a little bit prohibitive. So I started working, but I wasn't very happy with the digital look. Let me see if I can find a good image. So what I did was I made my own, you can make your own pencils, like you can make your own digital pencils. So I made my own. I'll see if I can find the image where.
Was this Procreate or something else?
This was Procreate. So you can see it looks like a pencil. So I have sort of scanned in samples and created my own digital tool. But I also worked a lot with surfaces and the documentary material that we had. For example, this is real paper scanned in, and that's to kind of give a layer of the bureaucracy around this food stamps, and so it's a kind of and then this was
genius.
so and then sort of the doodles of the state building more and more prison. So the all of the visual choices are kind of there to try and support what's going on. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Who else?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's beautiful, and compliments you. It's awesome. Did you ever display your work in a gallery or an auction?
Not this work, because this work belongs to Random House, but I have exhibited a lot, and I have pieces in the British Museum, and I have exhibited a lot in my life, and I really like exhibiting, but I also like books because it's for more people. But yeah, I do a lot of exhibiting. Thank you.
My question is to you. You are a graphic artist and an art teacher. This particular Dead Man Walking must have some emotional impact on you. Would you describe a little bit of how you felt and how you feel now before you took the challenge?
Sure. I mean, we talked about this again earlier in the evening. That it is a very emotional way to be when you're working on a book like this. And before this, I worked on a book about the Congolese occupation of the Belgian occupation of Congo, which was also very brutal. And I was saying earlier that you do all this research and you find out all these terrible things, and then you have to sort of recreate them. So it's extremely distressing, and you go around with this feeling in your body of it just felt a bit raw. But what I said before was that it won't go away if I don't draw it. Nothing will change. So it makes me feel like I'm doing something, and that I accept being emotionally raw as a exchange. That's fine with me.
Great.
So to bring you back
No, that's on Friday.
We're working up to that po' boy.
That's on Friday. I'm saving myself. We have an event on Friday at Melba's Po' Boy.
At Melba's. Y'all know about Melba's?
Yeah.
This is beautiful, and it's so many more layers than I thought it would have. And what I wonder is if you guys can talk a little bit about what that collaboration looks like. Because I know Sister Helen has a very strong personality, and I think each of you seems to be a genius in your craft. So what does that look like as you decide to do something, or you see what they are doing?
Maybe Rose, you want to?
Well, Helen really gave it over.
I did.
To
I've
us
done that with every
do.
artist, the movie, the opera, turned it over to the,
So we had her book, and then we both of us did a huge amount of research for it, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. And of course, Catherine was in Sweden, I was here, and so our only communication was Zoom and emails and things like that. And it was a time sort of compressed and then expanded and things, because I think it was a painful work to do at times. And I know I slowed down sometimes when the material, like In Re Kemmler, which is about William Kemmler, the first person executed by electric chair. And the research for that was horrifying. And I know that I'd slow down, and sometimes we'd be feeding each other material very quickly, and at other times I think we stretched both for our lives to take place, but also to be able to handle writing the next part. But the collaboration was beautiful. I mean, I love you. You know, I mean, we were so lucky. I mean,
We just started chatting just about everything else.
Yes,
It
yes.
was,
Her daughter Sigrid would
Come
pop
on the
into
Zoom. Oh
Zooms,
my
and yeah, I mean, it was a delicious relationship. And she is a genius. You're right, amazing woman. So I was very, very fortunate.
but the research that Rose did, I mean, because there's so much about methods of execution now. I mean, it's horrifying results we're finding out that lethal injection isn't as nice and medicinal as it looks, and that the lungs of the executed are filled with this foam, which means they are suffocating to death, but there's a paralytic drug given them, and the witnesses, even the witnesses don't see a thing. And Rose did research, like, for example, about hanging. If the person's too fat and you go to hang them, their head's going to pop off. So she did the research. Tell them about the research you did on that.
Well, there's actually an army manual that I got a copy of about how to hang. And they have a table of weights and drop lengths of the rope. And, you know, so we went into all the detail, and I've actually been writing about it more since, because I write a newsletter each week, or most weeks, Graphic Dead Man Walking, .substack.com if you're interested.
Yeah,
but
it's a good one.
But that sort of expands on my research into the methods. But in here we cover it a lot. And, you know, electrocution was introduced as a humane alternative to hanging. And then we had gas chambers as humane alternative to electrocution, and then lethal injection. And it just goes on, trying to find humane way to kill people. So we cover that a lot in the book.
This is for Sister Helen. You mentioned that you wrote the book, there was the movie, there's the opera. Were there any new insights or memories that came up with the creation of the graphic novel that you had that you didn't have with the previous versions of the story?
Oh, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, in terms of insight into myself, actually. I mean, the way Rose wrote it and Catherine, that childhood thing of the swing on the same tree, I mean, people were being lynched in the Jim Crow days, and how blind I was to it. I was just ignorant. And that's an insight directly from the book. And then all the research that Rose did on the different methods and stuff, it's new insight into the horror of all this. I mean, how did I do this? I mean, I've accompanied 8 people. And what has come, and if we could show them one page of where I realized, it just shows me after the execution of Robert Willie, and I'm holding this knitted black hat that he always wore, and they took it off him before, as they led him to execution. I'm sitting there with the hat. And see, when I'd been at the execution of Pat Saunier, when they actually pulled the switch, they'd put a mask on his face, and I knew he couldn't see me. He knew I was there, but I closed my eyes. And with this, with Robert Willie, I just say, what's the text say?
This time I do not close my eyes. I watch everything.
This time I do not close my eyes, I watch everything. And I realize what I am is a witness. Because this thing is a secret ritual and people don't know about it. And that's what propels the mission. It's the driving force in me to get this out to people and just say, look what we're doing, and bring them close. And there's this saying from Latin America, what the eye does not see, the heart cannot feel. And I love the graphic because it's going to bring it close to people and help wake us up that we need to change this thing. And we are on the way to abolishing the death penalty. And we need now the next wave.
One more.
Thank you so much for this beautiful book, and I'm grateful that this story is coming to a new generation, and kind of anticipate my question very well, which what is the next wave? How do these college students, these law students, and everyone in this room participate in ending the death penalty in Louisiana and beyond?
Good question.
Yeah.
And also vote for governor.
Absolutely. One thing is, there's now a national movement. The National Coalition has been formed of 40 different groups around the United States. And get in on that. Put your name in there as part of the national movement. It's enddeathpenalty.org. That's a webpage. And then also here in Louisiana, we're working to get the money, to raise the money, to have a 5-year campaign to bring it to the people, and we want to enlist young people especially in this. It's going to be the next wave. And so you can go on our webpage, Ministry Against the Death Penalty, www.sisterhelen.org, and support us in the ministry, because we need to raise the money, we need to do all of this to get it going, and that could be tremendous help. So all the meetings we're going to be having with Loyola students, we're going to be inviting them to be part of this Louisiana campaign, which is what we need to do.
Good. Rose, say it again, if people want to sign up for the newsletter.
Oh, yeah, it's graphicdeadmanwalking.substack.com.
Say that again slowly.
graphicdeadmanwalking.substack.com.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Wasn't it at
excellent.
the-
It's
And
excellent.
Kathleen?
She's a great writer.
It's in the book.
It is.
It's the last thing in the book.
Oh, good.
Catherine,
I keep on learning
is
things.
your website up and running now?
Don't even ask, because
She's too busy being an artist.
it was down until, I mean, it was up in within the 6 years, but it's been down like for the last few months leading up to this.
I thought it was up again.
It's up again.
Yeah.
But no, and that is just due to incompetence.
Well, and I have a rose for
Yeah,
our
exactly,
social media.
exactly.
You need a
You all
rose.
join me in giving them an extraordinary
Good job, y'all. Great.
Set up as well.
Yeah.
So it's not time to leave yet. We have one more piece to share with you. a lawyer, to represent someone in court, to be their voice in court. And what Professor Quigley taught us all was that we are not being their voice in court. We are creating a space for them to be their own voice in court, to be able to tell their own story, to say the thing that they need to say, and we're just a vehicle through which that happens in our system. So downstairs, we're gonna go, we're all invited to a reception downstairs on the first floor of the library. And you're gonna be treated to an extraordinary exhibit by our guest, Becky Godsagan. Please stand and be recognized. Ceramic artist who was commissioned by the Innocence Project to sculpt the face of Jerome Morgan, who was the first exoneree that was commissioned for to exhibit. And she thereafter understood the project so beautifully that she continued to sculpt the images of men who have been exonerated. Together there are 27 images. They spent 726 years collectively for crimes that they were subsequently exonerated from. That's a staggering number of years lost, dads lost, children lost. If you think about the ripple effects of that, so it is incumbent upon us to see this so that we don't unsee it. The exhibit is downstairs in our library, and some of the men, exonerees, who are depicted there are with us tonight, and we're going to ask you guys to stand.
Yeah.
We are grateful for your presence here, for all of you, and for the work that you have been doing, for the friendships that are forged, for the relationships that are forged, to do the work that we're called to do. I think you all know that Loyola, through our Social Justice Center for Social Justice, represents right now, I think, 13 men currently on death row. If you are a student in the law school and you want to be involved in this work, there's a way for you to do it. So chat with us about that. There is work for everyone to do, from graphic artists to researchers to nuns who are bossy, right, to professors, to students, to lay people. All of us have a role to play in this space, to work together and to love together. So thank you all very much for coming. You are welcome to downstairs. Remember, there are books. We have 100 books. Please do not trip each other. You can buy it. It would help the cause. There are steps that go down. There are elevators that go down. And we also have Calvin Duncan's book, The Jailhouse Lawyer.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for coming. God bless you. Be good to one another and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.